Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Hi, everyone. It's Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowercat.com with a special edition of the Powercat Pregame Podcast, our first ever women's basketball edition of this show, as Kansas State has made it to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2002. And let's give them a little added special bonus treatment here with this show. K-State plays USC on Saturday night at 7 p.m. in Spokane, Washington, and it'll be a very interesting matchup. K-State, the 5th seed in this region, USC, the 1 seed, but this comes with an asterisk because JuJu Watkins may be the best player in the nation, injured her knee in the round of 32 win over Mississippi State. Without her, in the final 35 minutes of that game, they beat Mississippi State by roughly 40 points. So this is a really good team, but it has had an impact on how people are viewing this game, and it's changed maybe some of the analytics about it. And we'll get into all of that during this show. We've got 3 segments for our 3 guests, and we start with national women's basketball analyst Missy Heidrick, former K-State player, to break down these 2 teams for us and how they fit together now in the current environment. Then we'll bring in Ahmad Akkauui from our USC side on the 24/7 Sports Network to give us the background on USC and where they are right now in the season, coming off a win, but a very serious injury that changes how they're probably going to have to play. We'll wrap it up with the nephew, our women's basketball analyst, Ethan Fitzgerald, to give us the final touches and talk about the spread of this game, which has plummeted tremendously. So why mess around? We've got a game Saturday night to preview. It's on ESPN, by the way. So let's get going and bring in Missy Heidrick. And now we bring in basketball analyst Missy Heidrick, the old left-hander. Did I say old? I meant the young left-hander.
Thank you.
To talk about K-State and USC in the Sweet 16. And boy, we got to start with the obvious topic. JuJu Watkins, just heartbreaking. Just
Yes.
I watched it happen. And I'm like, no, this can't. No.
Yeah.
Everyone is stunned, and it changes this game quite a bit. But what a blow for women's basketball.
Yeah, I think it's a devastating injury, obviously, to the person that more than likely is going to win every National Player of the Year award. I know a couple still have voting open, so I think it'll be interesting to see how people react to the fact that she's not going to play the remainder of the NCAA tournament and not be available. But, you know, I think I said on your podcast over the weekend after Kansas State advanced, you know, I truly believe JuJu Watkins a generational type talent in the sense of what she does on the floor. And I think the sort of the trail that she is blazing off the floor as well. When you think about this world of NIL and what she's doing, following in the steps of a Caitlin Clark, but this is a hometown kid from LA that stayed home, that took a chance on Lindsey Gottlieb and this USC program, and, you know, has been the face of it up until now. Obviously, this just changes things. It changes how they play. It changes what they do. I was very impressed with the rest of the team and how they responded in that round of 32 game against Mississippi State. You know, she only scored 5 points and they scored 96. You know, she goes down in that first half. So I think these kids rallied. And the question now is, do they have another, that next gear in them to be able to play differently, play without her, and coalesce around a different idea and a different identity with no JuJu Watkins.
And Jeff Mittie, K-State's coach, said it at his Wednesday press conference, that it's kind of hard to scout them now because they haven't played meaningful minutes without her.
Yeah.
They did against Mississippi State. They were really good without her, but I almost felt like they had something to prove. They were mad about what just happened to their friend, teammate, and star player, and they responded. Now that they've come down from that, it'll be very intriguing to me to see how they respond to the start of this K-State game on Saturday night.
No, I think you're right. This is a group, they've only lost 3 games. Their first loss of the season was to Notre Dame, who's a 3 seed over in the Birmingham 3 side of the bracket. That was back in November. They lost at Iowa in a nail biter during the Big Ten season, and then to UCLA in the finals of the Big Ten tournament. So not a ton of adversity for this group in the sense they had to figure out it. There were times throughout the year, I think they had to grind out some wins, just as every really good team does, because it's not super simple. But for USC, I think this ultimately is, what is the game plan and how does Lindsay Gottlieb go to not only get her team prepared, but how different and what are they going to do different? How do they play differently and what are you going to see for them on the floor? For those out there that don't know a lot about Lindsay Gottlieb, she is a fantastic coach. She's been to the Final Four. She took Cal to the Final Four. She then left Cal and she went and became an assistant for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And there's one thing that really strikes me, and I find both she and Kara Lawson very similar in this manner. And Kara Lawson being the head coach for Duke, who spent time on the bench as an assistant with the Celtics. It's very much an NBA mentality, sometimes in how they approach games and game plans. You'll see them come out in different sets, different looks at different times of the game. And that's an NBA mindset, a specific set, a specific play out of that first media timeout. This is what they're going to do. That's not going to be in the scouting report. And that's going to be because of sort of the X's and O's brain that she has. The key now is going to be looking at how this team becomes maybe more post-centric, but they're still going to play fast. They have 3 incredibly talented guards. They're all freshmen, but they were the number 1 recruiting class in the country in the class of 2024. So for those that think that without JuJu, that this is not a very talented, good team, well, you want to check that at the door. What you have to do is you have to be prepared in knowing that all of the other faces are the same. It's just now without JuJu Watkins on the floor.
No JuJu, but Kiki.
Yes.
I'm going to try her last name again. You ready?
Yes.
Kiki Areafin. Not even close. Not even close.
I've heard it. So I've always been told, especially from people, Stanford folks, where she played for 4 years, it's Iriafen. Now I'm hearing different things on the television. So I've always just gone with Kiki Iriafen, and I apologize if that's not correct, but she blasted Mississippi State for 36 on Sunday night.
36.
And just 36. I mean, and it wasn't really even a pedestrian 36. It was a full bore foot on the gas 36. She's a talent and she is athletic. A couple of the times she caught at the top of the key fit. She caught around like that 15-foot line at the elbow. She ripped through and blew by everybody. So that is a matchup problem for Kansas State in terms of you want to limit the touches that she gets, but then you're going to have to figure out a way to not give her those open lanes. Help side's going to have to be there. But as Kansas State has proven, if you put too much emphasis on the post and you suck everybody into the middle of the lane, they've got shooters, they've got perimeter players that can beat you from deep.
Well, in looking at them, they played an aggressive brand of basketball. They get after you.
Yeah.
And K-State didn't respond very well when West Virginia did that. What are your thoughts on how K-State might handle this pressure?
Yeah, I think that sort of chaos aggressiveness is not something that the Wildcats have dealt with very well with this year. 2 times when they played West Virginia in Morgantown and in the Big 12 tournament. You can go all the way back to November when they played Duke. And that is maybe one of the other most aggressive defenses you're going to see in the country is from the Blue Devils. And that was not a game of which this team held their composure and was able to handle it. You're going to have different people handle the basketball. It can't just be all Serena Sundell. They're going to have to utilize Walker. Terrence Sides is going to have to help Jalen Glenn. Everyone's going to have to do it. It's going to be a kind of a collective effort, I think, because then you can move people off the ball. Not one person is having to manage that pressure. I think it goes back to the idea. I saw this in the UConn South Dakota State game on Sunday night, which was prior to, or on Monday night, which was prior to the USC game. When South Dakota State made buckets early in that game against UConn, it was very difficult then for the Huskies to get their defense going. And then on the flip side, when they missed shots, they couldn't get that pressure applied right away. The key is you're going to have to force USC into tough guarded twos tough guarded threes and limit their chances to score. Because when they score, that's when the pressure comes. That's when you're going to really feel that intensity. Could be full court, 3/4 court, half court, but that allows them to get their defense set. And that's when they then are on the offense, and you as an offense back on your heels, more defensive.
Let's wind back to that Kentucky game. As you have now kind of absorbed it a little bit better, what were some of the positives and negatives, things that they have to be better at advancing here through the bracket from that game?
Well, when you go 14 of 35 from behind the three-point line, I mean, that's fantastic. But I always go with the old adage that the three-point shot can shoot you in a game and it can shoot you out. And so if you are only reliant on the three ball, that can be an issue, especially against a very physical, aggressive team like USC. So I think they've got to be more versatile in how they find ways to get shots and score. The minutes that they got for Ayoka Lee, a huge bonus. You know, the 16 points, 9 boards that she has, that is where she has to be. She's got to draw that attention. She's got to be able to catch and force people to have to make a decision defensively. That'll be key against USC, where they've got one of the best shot blockers that's come through the Pac-12/Big Ten in Rayon Marshall. She's really good, and they're going to be aggressive and they're going to be physical. This is not new for USC to see a 6'6" post player. They play against Lauren Betts out of UCLA. She's 6'7". You think about some of the size in the post you see in the Big Ten night after night, nothing new for them. So you're going to have to be creative. And I think that's the one thing for me, if I would say kind of a negative right now. I didn't see a lot of anything really new. I didn't see a lot of new wrinkles for Kansas State offensively. A lot of the same ball screens, a lot of the same action, just hoping that you're going to get a shot, that the skip pass can be there. They telegraph that skip pass. So if you're aggressive and you can read the defense and shoot a gap, that ball's going the other way. So this team's going to have to be really on the urge or on the cusp of flawless, I believe. I think you don't have a lot of the margin of error is very thin when you play a team like USC, who, as you have already said, aggressive, in your face. They're going to get up in you, and it's going to be 40 minutes of high level intensity.
It changed the game. The injury changed the game in a way that I didn't expect. I still thought USC would be a substantial favorite in this because I watched them play without her, and they absolutely just destroyed an NCAA tournament team, the second round team. But no, the spread has wandered down to 1.5. It's a point as we record this at DraftKings. I'm sorry, I still find that hard to believe in watching the level of athleticism and talent that USC has that has so dramatically changed the spread.
I'm with you. I'm shocked by it. But I think that this is a reaction to when you take the best player in the country out of the lineup with there's not even she could very well maybe play. Like that isn't even an option. So I think this reaction is to the fact that you're taking out one of the top 3 scorers in the country, the best player in the nation, and she's not available. And ultimately the question is, well, what do they do? What happens? We've seen this in the past. It's been one of those scenarios where, especially in men's and women's basketball, prior to Selection Sunday, people don't want to talk about injuries, right? They don't want to say, you go all the way back to Bob Huggins and the Kenyon Martin deal at Cincinnati. But on the women's side, a year ago, Elizabeth Kitley from Virginia Tech, they didn't talk about it. No one knew what her injury was. She was unavailable because she had blown an ACL. 2 years earlier than that, Olivia Miles from Notre Dame. You're just not going to talk about it. This is front and center. Everybody knows. So I just think that it's kind of the overcorrect possibly by a lot of people to say, oh, they've got no chance, or there's just going to be so much more there for Kansas State to be able to exploit. Very well could be. But I do think it's going to be about game plan and execution. And when you get to the Sweet 16, you cannot afford breakdowns and you can't afford mental mistakes. And that's where I think if you're Kansas State, getting to the side of being more flawless is one thing they're going to have to be able to do. That's what happens. This is tournament time. We said it before. You can survive in advance, you win by 1 or 21. It doesn't matter. but you want to be on the right side of that number.
Yep. A sad part of women's basketball is a lot of knee injuries. Did you ever have a knee injury?
I did. I didn't have an ACL. I had torn meniscus after my freshman year, but I didn't have to go through ACL. But you're right. I mean, and it's crazy. It's an epidemic of female athletes in general.
Yep.
And the research is improving, and they're doing more these days about injury prevention. But some of it is simply physiology, and there's nothing that you can do about it. The worst are the non-contact injuries, which is what you saw with JuJu Watkins on the other night. And it breaks your heart, because I know I have not had the opportunity to be around JuJu or to interview her, but from everything that everyone tells me, she's an intense, focused, but incredible young woman. And I know she's going to come back and have a great career. But this is also not, I think, the first adversity as a program. I'll give you a quick story, Fitz. A couple years ago, I had the chance to interview Lindsay Gottlieb for an article that I was doing, and she was fantastic. And she was coming off earlier that year, one of her top signees at the time, one of her very first classes that she signed at USC, young woman, high school senior, was shot at a party in Las Vegas in her hometown. She survived. But she told me that day on the phone, she was like, it's the worst phone call that you can get, to think about that. She goes, as a parent, she's a mom, you think about all of the things that are going through your head. And all she wanted to do was to tell that young lady that no matter what, you will always be a part of USC women's basketball. She survived. She made a recovery. She's still on the roster. She's part of this Sweet 16 team. She's not nearly the type of player that she was before. But those feel-good stories are out there. They're part of this USC program. And I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of coalescing around going through tough times, but they figure out a way to get it done.
So you've covered a lot of basketball, but you followed this K-State team pretty closely. When you lose a star player, which K-State has gone through 2 seasons in a row now, what's the bigger adjustment? Mental in like your crutch is gone, your go-to's gone, the person you fall back on to have the points when you need it or rebound, or the actual X's and O's of the game that you now got to do things differently because you're not running everything through that star player?
I feel like it's a combination of both, because sometimes when when you have that elite level player, that they are going to dominate. They're going to dominate the sets. They're going to dominate the plays. It's going to be with an idea that she's the person to have the ball in her hands. When they're not there, then you're absolutely right. Someone else is going to have to step into that role. Who wants to be the next person up? From the X's and O's perspective, you have to think about who do you slide into that role or into that position. It's not someone that's going to be as prolific of a scorer or a defender. So those adjustments have to be made. Not one single person on USC's roster is going to be able to make up 25 plus points a game like JuJu Watkins has been scoring for them. Same thing happened for Kansas State. There was not one person that was going to pick up the slack of 18 plus a game when Akkaui's not available. You got to do it as a unit. So they're going to need some of that depth, some of that bench, some of these incredibly talented younger players that have come into their program as recruits to be able to take that over. This is also, I think, a little interesting in it's different than what Kansas State has dealt with. And I say that because there was always this scenario that Akkauui was coming back. So you're riding that wave of time of which she's here, she's not, now she's back, reintroducing her into practice, getting back to some of those specific sets and actions where she's going to get touches that they hadn't been doing for a while. For USC, there's no option. JuJu's not back. This is the way we go. This is the direction we're heading, especially headed into that game on Saturday.
Well, if you had to point to one or two things that K-State has to do, maybe better than what they have been doing on the regular this season, what would those be?
Well, I'll tell you, you cannot give up 19 offensive rebounds, which is what they did against Kentucky and, got out by the hair of their chinny chin claws against the other Wildcats in overtime. So you've got to box out. You're going to have to put a body on people. That is one thing they have to do. They got to be better on the glass. And I cannot emphasize enough how I think this team has got to be more versatile in how they score the ball. Yes, you want to knock down threes and you've got to take open looks, but they have got to be more aggressive off the bounce. They're going to have to be in that attack mode. Don't just settle for threes, especially when they're guarded threes. That gets teams in trouble because you just can't behind that 3-point line and hope and pray. You got to be the aggressor. They're going to have that attack mentality for 40 minutes.
Well, if they could get Tamara Poindexter back into the zone, that would
helps a ton. Yeah. I mean, that's talk about genius, right? Like you got to feel like this works out all the way. But we all know that when she goes 8 for, when she's whatever she 8 for 17 or 8, whatever she was from behind the 3-point line for 24 points, that's circled. That hasn't gone unnoticed by the USC coaching staff. I can promise you that. So with that said, I'm also looking for a couple different wrinkles. How are we going to get her some shots? Maybe it's to run her off a couple screens, to mix and match, see if you can find a mismatch here or there so they could draw out a big. And then now all of a sudden you've got Akkauui in the middle. You got to do some things different. You can't just stick with the same game plan, but that's what tournament time's all about.
Very good. Missy Heidrick, one of our basketball analysts. She's a basketball analyst for so many people. She lends her skills all over the place. We appreciate it, Missy, so much. And on the other side here, we're going to get the USC perspective with Ahmad Akkauui from our USC site on the 24/7 Sports Network. And we'll bring him in right after this break. And now we bring in from our USC site on the 24/7 Sports Network, USCfootball.com. This is women's basketball, though. Ahmad Akkauui. Ahmad, appreciate it very much. We got it. The big thing here is JuJu Watkins. I'm watching that game the other night, and the second she goes down and the way she went down, it was bad. It was horrifying that could happen right at this point of her season, her career. Just give me your thoughts on her knee injury and how it impacts this team.
Well, I just got done writing kind of what do USC, how does USC move forward past her kind of piece. And I kind of broke down on exactly what it is. I mean, initial thoughts of it, sitting sideline, she's running on the court. She had, 3 points off the free throw line. She had a defensive rebound. She had 2 assists. It seemed like it was a decent game. Game was just starting. It was, 5-ish minutes into the game. She just stepped wrong and she went down. And it was just a shocker for us. I'm sitting next to all the beat writers and whatnot, and we're like, uh-oh. The game before that, she was holding her left pinky. Okay, she can kind of play through that. Later on in the game, she had twisted her ankle a little bit. All right, she went to the back, came back about a minute later. She seemed a little invincible. But this one, she literally got carried out, and we knew it was bad. And it was a situation where we had to figure out what was next. I personally didn't really know how to proceed from there in the sense of reporting on it. My colleague, Connor Morissette, he was up in the stands and, he did a breaking news piece on it. We had no idea what it was. I saw the athletic director of USC sitting courtside or in the stands, like in the first row. She had directed her staff to take JuJu's parents who were, in the stands to take her. She went to the USC Keck Hospital a few miles away by ambulance. They took her. Of course, they got an MRI, and they found out later on. We found out late at night, about 11 o'clock at night, our time, that she did in fact sustain a season-ending injury, which was later confirmed to be a tear ACL.
Yeah, it was awful. And interesting reaction from Kansas State players today. They're heartbroken. I mean, that is such an elite player. They were looking forward to seeing where they measured up, seeing, how good she was in person. They were fired up to play her, and generally heartbroken to see someone injured that way. And, and at this point of the season. But it does change USC quite a bit. They just went ahead and blew out Mississippi State by 40. We don't have our best player. We're just going to beat them by 40. Let's just move on. But this is a really talented team, even without her. But her presence is exactly why this was the number one seed and maybe the best team in the nation. But how will they look without her?
They will look different. To kind of give you a perspective, she had 2 of 29 of the team's assists in that game. They moved the ball really well. Kiki Iriafen, after the game, said the ball was electric, and they had a lot of fun moving the ball. They're a very unselfish team, but offensively, they look very different without her. In my opinion, they look a little smoother because they tend to move the ball a lot more. JuJu Watkins, of course, is the best player in college basketball right now. Men or women, I'm not going to debate that.
Yep.
And a lot of people can debate me on it. I refuse personally. But at the end of the day, she is a player that demands a lot offensively. Now, on the defensive end, they are going to look very different because you don't have a 6'2", 6'3" guard who moves very well around the perimeter and who can block a shot in, coming as a secondary defender. So they don't have that. Now they do have shot blocking ability and they do have, other guards who can fill in that spot, but it's just so hard not to have a finalist for the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. So
Yeah.
it's hard to do that on both sides. They'll figure it out, of course, but it will be a bit of an uphill battle for them.
Lindsey Gottlieb's really built something special at USC. What are the kind of the foundation points of this USC program?
So there's a few players who've been there since she started. And because of JuJu Watkins, the culture of the team has pretty much skyrocketed. Everyone has come together and, the freshmen of the class, this freshman class, they're great. They're down one, of course, who tore her ACL right before the season. Unfortunately, we saw that as well. It was in an open practice, and she came down with a rebound, Laura Williams, and she happened to tear her ACL. She went down pretty hard. So, they have the 6 of them. 3 of them play very quality minutes. One of them is a starter in Kennedy Smith. Great on-ball defender. Kaylee Heckel, great point guard who is fearless, who attacks the rim. And Avery Howell, who shoots the ball really well from 3. The foundation of the team is, this defensive, full court pressure, defense first, defense leads to offense kind of team. And at the end of the day, against anybody, whether it is Kansas State or, UNC Greensboro, they're going to suffocate you on the defensive end. And that's pretty much the culture that they've built behind, Lindsey Gottlieb and associate head coach Beth Burns.
Brother, that's a fun brand of basketball to watch. When you're playing that kind of defense, and K-State mentioned how often they just flat beat you down the court before your defense sets up. They're constantly in attack mode. Teams that have had success against USC, what have they done that has led to that success? Or did they just catch USC on a bad night?
Sometimes it's catching USC on a bad night, and sometimes it's just being crafty. Against Iowa, they just couldn't hit the shot. Iowa is the only loss that they had against an unranked team. They lost against Notre Dame early in the season. Notre Dame is a great team. Down the stretch, they kind of fell off a little bit, but you can't count them out at all. And then they lost to UCLA, of course, in the 3rd game after beating them twice. So kind of have the number a little bit. But against Iowa, it was just the fact of playing good and smart offense on a night where the crowd was behind them. It was the day that they were retiring Caitlin Clark's jersey, and it was just a time where the entire arena was going crazy, and it was just a game that USC could have came out with the win against, but not surprisingly, they lost that game. I covered it from home, and through the TV, it pretty much stood out how loud that stadium is. And that team plays decently against a big crowd, but when a big crowd is against you as a visitor, it's really hard. And that's what we definitely saw on Monday when USC faced Mississippi State. Mississippi State could not win behind that crowd. That crowd was so loud.
Yeah, that was quite the environment. It was pretty cool. You've been covering women's basketball. It has really picked up steam. I mean, there's always been elite teams, but it strikes me now that teams like K-State's a 5 seed. 5 seeds just never were a threat, and now they can be, which speaks to the addition of talent. There's a lot more talent spread across college basketball. A lot of it's foreign influences we talked about with some of the players on both rosters. So what are your thoughts on Kansas State? What would you, if you were talking to the Wildcats and they ask you, what do we need to do to win this game? I think that question is more tangible now than with JuJu, but what would you say to them?
So the main piece of K-State is Akkauui, another 6'6" center that USC has to go against. They faced Lauren Betts, one of the best centers in the league right now, debatably a Player of the Year award winner, possibly. She was unable to do a lot of things against USC in the first two matchups. In the third matchup, she was able to do a little bit more because they were able to put her in different positions. USC faced another 6'6" center the other night against Mississippi State. That 6'6" center couldn't do much. Facing another one in K-State, they're going to suffocate her. So my advice is to play through her and get the guards involved, get the ball moving. When the ball moves, you find the open player, you hit some shots that can beat USC. But the biggest thing is moving that ball in the full court transition, getting the ball over. USC does really good. They, on top of them doing a really good full court press, they're very good at limiting teams to the defensive side of the half court and getting those 10-second violations. So getting that ball over half court is the number one key they have to get over.
It'll be interesting. K-State did not respond well to West Virginia's pressure the last two times they played them. They're a full court team, and they struggled with that despite having a number of guards that can handle the ball. It was just kind of got into their head. So we'll see. We'll probably know early on if K-State's impacted by that and if Lee can play any of her game. But they, as Tamara Poindexter proved, they can hit outside shots with her 8 in that game against Kentucky. How much is I don't know how to say this, the atmosphere maybe around this program, USC program, changed with his injury? This looked like a Final Four year that with a very tangible chance at a national title, and now that has to be in doubt.
Yeah, I have doubt in my opinion. Now, this is going to be the first time that Kiki Iriafen is the main piece of a team. She played for 3 seasons at Stanford behind number 3 overall pick, Cameron Brink. I think she went number 3 overall to the Los Angeles Sparks. Brink was an amazing player at Stanford, and Iriafen definitely learned a lot. Iriafen is great in the post. She has a killer left-hand layup in the post. She is great defensively. She moves really well, and she can guard 1 through 5. They don't really put her at the 5 spot too often because they have Clarice Akunwafo and Rhea Marshall in the paint as their kind of centerpiece of their defense. So this team is going to go as far as Kiki Iriafen can take them. Now, Kiki is not the same as JuJu in the sense of scoring at will from all over the court. Kiki is amazing in the mid-range, and she can shoot the ball very well, and she can do a lot of things in the paint on top of, getting offensive boards and putting it back, which is something that K-State has to get over. Either they have to grab those defensive rebounds or they have to box her out and allow those. Whatever they have to do to kind of get her off those offensive boards is key. But this team is going to go as far as Kiki takes them, but they also move the ball very well. So K-State has to defend very well because they can also shoot the three deadly.
Well, it'll be an interesting game. Ahmad, I appreciate your insights very much as K-State and USC will meet on Saturday night in Spokane. We'll see how it all shakes out, but I would expect, unfortunately for K-State, probably USC advances, and we'll see how K-State reacts to their first Sweet 16 in a very long time. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much. I'll be in Spokane, so we'll see.
And now we've arrived at the third segment. In football, when we do a pregame podcast, it's all about gambling odds to Ryan Gilbert. We'll do a little of that with Ethan, my nephew Ethan Woodhull Fitzgerald Woodhull. How does it work? I don't know. Don't go by the hyphen. Just use the pseudonym Fitzgerald. That way, all the ladies that want to meet up with you don't know your real last name.
That's true. Can't get me.
I know. You and I were both watching separately the game with USC and Mississippi State the other night when that happened, when JuJu Watkins went down in a heap and it was obvious it was bad. It was pretty clear, particularly on the replay from behind when you saw the knee buckle. We've been around college athletics as a whole. Sometimes women and their knees in basketball just don't add up. It doesn't work. And that's exactly what happened. That knee just gave out. Dude, it was heartbreaking to see a player of that stature go down in a heap.
Oh, 100%. I mean, of course, you can look at it, how it benefits K-State, but that's not the point. The point isn't, this is an icon of the game. This is a player of the year candidate. This is, like I said, an icon of the game. And see her fall in the middle of March Madness in the round of 32 is heartbreaking. Especially, she's 19 years old. You also have to remember that. Yes, she carries a lot of weight with being who she is. But JuJu, she's 19 years old. She has a career ahead of her. Knee injuries are awful in the sport of basketball to recover from. K-State fans should know that. We've seen it with Ayoka Lee. It's awful. I really hope she comes back and plays again, whether it be pro or in college again. Yeah. But it's going to be a long recovery for her. But JuJu's a tough girl. I think she'll power through, and we'll see her back soon.
Now, in talking to the players, no one was more upset by her absence, her injury, than Serena Sundell, who probably would have matched up with her. I feel like we got cheated, man. I feel like that would have been a lot of fun to watch those two go at it as two really smart, talented basketball players would have matched up. And now that's been stolen from us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there are very, very few guards that can play 1 through 4, heck, even 5. But we would have had it. It was Serena and JuJu both stand at 6'2". They're great in the post. They're great on the perimeter. Their defense is great. JuJu scores a lot more, but JuJu can share the ball really well. Serena can score at any level. She can pass it. It would have been a really fun matchup, and it sucks we won't see it. And yeah, like you said, I know Serena's a competitor. She wanted the chance to play against JuJu. But injuries happen. It sucks.
Yep. Well, let's talk about the actual game now. They don't have their best player. It does change them in a way we're not real sure about because, as Jeff Mittie said at his press conference this week, there's not much film of them playing in high-level situations without JuJu Watkins. It's hard to scout them to know exactly what they've been. She averaged about 32 minutes a game, so they play without her, but let's be honest, probably a lot of those minutes are at the end of the game when it's a blowout, and it's hard to get much out of it anyhow from a scouting standpoint. But you mentioned Kiki Iriafen. As I butcher her name. She is their other main scorer. They've got two players in double figures. They both can fill it up. She really filled it up against Mississippi State. They're going to have to lean on her. She's a little bit more mid-range jumper and in type of player, more of a 4 for them. Give me your thoughts on her game.
Like you said, mid-range and in, but she's quick. She's really quick. You want to put a center on her like Aoka. She's going to try to pull Aoka out, not let her sit in the paint, and try to go around her. I think that's why you'll see Tamira and possibly Jalen guarding her, just so they can keep a player in front of her. She is a forward. She is not their starting center. That's Raya Marshall. But Kiki is going to be the go-to player. Like you said, she's the only other player on the roster that averages more than 10 points. She went off against Mississippi State. That's not new for K-State either. Georgia Moore went off against Liberty in their first round matchup, and they did a good job shutting her down. But you can now focus on a player like Kiki. This is going to be new for her too. Mississippi State and any team that's played USC this year, their focus is on JuJu. That lets players like Kiki really shine. But the question is, how is she going to handle being the key player now? That is K-State's main focus is going to be on. She's still a great player. She's an experienced player. But it's going to be interesting to see how she handles being now the primary focus of a team doing their scouting.
Yep, it will be. And this has had a dramatic impact on how this game is perceived. USC has gone, as you mentioned before we started, from being the best odds to win the national title to they've slipped way down that list. And now I don't know what the spread would have been on this game, but now it's just -1 for USC. So Vegas now sees this as a very even matchup. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100% is. A lot of people want to point to the fact that USC did blow out Mississippi State. I don't think that's a fair comparison for K-State. Yes, Mississippi State has some size, but they don't have an Aoka Lee. It's a closer game than people think. It's going to really come down. Of course, Aoka is a big impact, but once again, Tamira Poindexter, Serena Sundell, Mitty said before the tournament, it's the under rules, not the star players that's going to make this team go on a run or win a game. But it's going to be a closer game than I think people thought. With or without JuJu, I think K-State matches up well with USC. Their depth on the bench isn't great, which if K-State's going to do the 7 players again is good for them. It's going to be a fun matchup. It's going to be a really fun matchup.
USC is going to bring some pressure, and that's something K-State didn't respond to very well against West Virginia in Morgantown, but also in the Big 12 tournament. That has given them problems. How much of a concern is it?
Less of a concern. I mean, it's a concern, but this USC team is not like West Virginia. I think playing West Virginia twice might actually be super helpful tomorrow or Saturday when they take on USC. You've seen it. You know what to expect. They lose a JuJu Watkins, who's an extremely athletic 6'2" guard that can press the hell out of anyone. But it helps that you've seen West Virginia twice without Aoka Lee. It'll be a big part of the game. If K-State really struggles against it, then giving USC free possessions is going to really cause problems for K-State.
Yeah. What are some of the things? Not turn the ball over, obviously. The players mentioned at their press conference that about 25% of USC's points are scored off of beating the defense down the court. So that's a big element. What are the other things that you think K-State needs to do to get this win and advance to the Elite Eight?
As Missy said on our pregame or our postgame of the round of 32, they've got a rebound. Kentucky dominated the boards, and that should not have happened. I think Aoka talked about it at the press conference about a lot of this week's practices have been focusing on rebounding and transition. This isn't a team that you want to give second chances to. Kiki is really quick. Like we said, she will get on the offensive glass if you let her, but their quick tempo is going to hurt a little bit with the loss of JuJu. JuJu could beat anyone down the court and cause an issue. But this is still a team you've got to stay in front of. You've got to box out. You've got to rebound. You've got to limit second chance points. If USC controls the boards, they are going to be a nightmare to deal with because they can still score, as we saw against Mississippi State.
How big of a breakthrough is this for the program to get to the Sweet 16? They barely escaped, but they did get through it this year, and it's got to be uplifting to them. But also, I fear it'll be we're just happy to be here attitude. I think maybe with JuJu Watkins out, that might change, but this is significant for the program.
Oh, of course. I mean, 23 years is a long time. I would have been 3 years and like 5 months old when we made the Sweet 16 last time. But you throw in the fact you do this a year before you welcome in the best recruiting class you've ever had, on top of what is going to be a massive transfer portal for the women's game. There are already so many big names in the portal that K-State can go say, hey, we're now a really prominent program. Look at this young recruiting class we have. We were in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, whatever. It's big for the program because now they take that next step into the next echelon of women's basketball. This isn't a team now that's going to be expecting to make the Sweet 16 every 20 plus years. There's almost this expectation now that we've done it. We know how to do it now. We have the players coming in that have the talent to keep us consistently there. It's a big step. And it also gets rid of a lot of the naysayers that wanted to say Mitty can't do it. Mitty has all this talent and can't win with it. And I think it's just really good for the program, for the fans, for the future. It's all around just a big deal that should be celebrated, but also kind of is going to start setting the standard of what this K-State program wants to be at.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is something I usually do to Ryan Gilbert in this segment. Does K-State get this done?
I want to say yes.
That's exactly the way I want to say yes, but the moment might be too big, and USC is still really talented.
JuJu, we've seen what happened to K-State when they lost Ahmad Akkauui.
Mm-hmm.
It took a few games before they really got their feet back under them. Losing a player like JuJu doesn't just affect how you play in the paint. JuJu affects every aspect of the game. Offense, defense, from the perimeter in. She affects everything. With that said, how does the team respond? This is a young team. They do have some experience, but their first player off the bench is another true freshman. It comes down to if K-State can really cause issues in the paint for USC. If Aoka puts in the work, stays out of foul trouble, and then starts drawing in 2 or 3 defenders, and K-State does not do what they did to start against Kentucky where they couldn't hit anything, I really struggle to see K-State not finding a way to win this. It's just the impact that JuJu has. She plays, I think, 92% of all minutes for USC this year. To lose your floor general, to lose your leading scorer, your best player, arguably the best player in the country, it's hard to see how how USC beats a fully healthy K-State team.
Thank you, Ethan. You do a great job covering women's basketball for us at Go Powercat. And that's it for this Powercat Pregame Podcast. 3 analysts breaking down the game for you to prepare you for K-State and USC. Saturday night, 7 p.m., Spokane, Washington. The game is on ESPN. Can the Cats pull off the upset? An upset even though USC has lost its best player for the rest of the season. They're capable of doing it. Now, will they do it? We'll find out. And if the Cats advance, we'll be back for more coverage, more podcasts of these Wildcats. And if they don't, well, we'll have post-game coverage either way at gopowercat.com. Thanks for watching, everyone. I am Fitz, and make sure you're watching the Cats play USC on Saturday night.
This has been a gopowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.